Air India 787 accident. Timing is everything. A perspective from the flight deck. Capt Jay, retired. Before we begin, a bit of background. I'm a retired airline captain with nearly 35 years of experience, including time on several Boeing aircraft. I retired as an international line check captain on the A330. My total flight time is near 30,000 hours. What I'm sharing today comes not from speculation, but from experience and systems understanding. Today, I want to walk through what's known and what remains unclear about the recent Air India 787 accident. The public conversation has become highly reactive, and without context, critical procedural nuance is being lost. In the event overview, it is important to note that the reported maximum altitude of approximately 625 to 630 feet refers to the aircraft's altitude above mean sea level, AMSL, based on ADS-B and barometric altimetry data. This is not the height above ground level, AGL, which must be calculated relative to the field elevation, approximately 200 feet AMSL, at the departure airport. Therefore, the aircraft's peak climb reached roughly 425 to 430 feet, AGL. Central to the current debate is this: why were the fuel control switches moved to cutoff? Some believe this indicates an intentional shutdown, but the real question is, were the switches moved as part of a misjudgment, or were they part of a recovery attempt? Two primary scenarios. Scenario 1, the pilots deliberately or inadvertently moved the fuel control switches to cutoff, resulting in both engines losing power. This could reflect a misdiagnosis, incorrect procedure, or a reaction to faulty indications. Psychological, mechanical, or situational factors might have contributed, but without the timeline, that's speculative. Scenario 2, the switches were moved in response to a perceived or real engine failure, consistent with Boeing's emergency checklist procedures. Specifically, the dual engine fail stall checklist instructs fuel control switches, both, cut off, then run, to attempt relight in the event of a stall or flameout. If the engines had already failed or were unresponsive, this action may have been a textbook relight attempt, not a cause of failure. Per the preliminary report, the CCTV footage obtained from the airport showed the ram air turbine, RAT, getting deployed during the initial climb immediately after liftoff. The ram air turbine is an emergency system that deploys automatically upon a significant loss of primary electrical and/or hydraulic power, typically indicating a dual engine failure. If the ram air turbine deployed this early, it means the aircraft's systems detected a major power loss before the recorded fuel switch movements, strongly supporting the idea that the switches were a response to an already unfolding event, not the cause. The aircraft climbed well past this point, which would indicate the engines producing thrust to an altitude of 425 feet above ground level, what we don't have yet, the FDR timeline. The Flight Data Recorder, FDR, holds the objective truth. Without a detailed timeline, showing when engines spooled down, when switches were moved, and how the systems responded, we're left with conjecture. If the engines failed before the switches were moved, this was likely a recovery action. If the engines were functioning and the switches triggered the failure, it's a very different story. What the FDR should reveal, parameters and why it matters, N1/N2, RPM, both engines, confirms whether thrust was lost before or after switch action. Fuel flow and pressure indicates any upstream interruption or system cut. EEC/FADEC messages identifies automated events or resets. Fuel switch position logs verifies timing of cutoff and run movement. Ignition relight cycle shows whether a relight attempt was made. Thrust lever input reflects crew intent during the sequence. To date, only limited CVR excerpts have been made public. Without the FDR sequence, critical cause and effect remains unclear. Why this distinction matters. There was initial speculation regarding the position of the fuel control switches. While official reports confirm the fuel control switches were found in the run position after impact, indicating they were not intentionally left in cutoff, the preliminary FDR data shows they were moved to cutoff briefly during the flight. This distinction is important. The final run position suggests a recovery attempt, but the initial movement to cutoff is the critical event under scrutiny. It might represent a response, not a trigger. In Boeing aircraft, including the 787, cycling the fuel control switches is part of an emergency recovery checklist. That context is being missed in mainstream commentary. Bottom line, evidence before judgment. This is not about excusing error. It's about acknowledging how fast decisions must be made under extreme pressure, with limited information and only seconds to respond. Pilots don't act on headlines. Pilots act on training, system cues, and procedure. Until the full FDR timeline is made available, all interpretations remain incomplete. Closing thoughts. This was a serious accident, not a minor deviation. The pilots may have acted deliberately or inadvertently. We simply don't know yet. But the timing of those actions is everything. We owe it to the crew, the industry, and future safety to follow evidence, not assumptions. Context before conclusion. FDR before judgment. Capt Jay. Stay sharp, stay curious. I'll be back with more soon. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.